Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Aaron Conaway. I am here up in the sky above the Mammoth, and just wanted to intro our show here. We got a bunch of cool stuff coming along. Quickly, want to run a little history by you. The Mammoth has been here for 8 years out in West Louisville, and we've used the building for art studios and band practice spaces and all sorts of really cool shows, just all sorts of really cool creativity. We've made public art projects here, put them out in the community, just gotten a lot of people involved and just constantly creating. So that's that. About 5 years ago, the building got shut down due to structural repairs that needed to be done down in the basement, and now we have gotten an engineering report and we are fully ready to take care of getting that fixed. We need to get a bank loan so that we can get those repairs done, a couple other things, and so we can secure ownership of the building so that it's available to the community for decades to come. The event you're going to see tonight is full of really cool stuff, quite a variety of stuff, as it's a variety show. We have several artists, musicians, poets out in the world who are contributing their creative energy, their talent, in order to keep you entertained and to let you know that there's still creativity going on. There's still hope. So this new world that we're walking into has infinite possibilities. So tonight you're going to hear from and see various acts from around the city, around the world as well. Myself, I'm going to be involved in working with a couple super talented guys. Our hosts, Mr. C.D. McSeedster, the sideshow act man, and also Mr. John Paul Wright, who will be really entertaining us with his guitar and his poetry and his antics. Also on site, we will hear from Mr. Bonnie Prince Billy. An amazing set is going to be coming for you guys. But also, you're going to hear from Mr. Brett Eugene Ralph and Mark Hamilton and Rita Cameron coming to you from a undisclosed location, as well as Gregory Cheney, Mr. Jameson Welsh. It's a couple of poems in store for you. We've got a performance from Tori SB. John Taylor has a special song for you. We have some poetry from Damian Taggart. Danny Bethay has a song for you. We'll hear from The Morning, have a story from Mr. Craig McClurkin. And lastly, I want to say thanks to Craig and John and Mr. Steve Good as our teeny tiny skeleton production crew. So without further ado, I want to send you off to Mr. John Paul Wright, who's going to start out with a little song for you. Enjoy the show. This is MAMMOTH-Vision 2020.
Aha, away. It's kind of crazy right now what's been going down. So this is my little segment. Here's what's going to happen. Ready? Well, we're all here. We're all right here trying to save something pretty cool. And that's how we all got to come together. Just like how this song is gonna come together. Oh, they call it improvisation and reflection. Oh, what can I do? Well, try not to make it all guilt-ridden like some of that other stuff is. But we could sure use a little bit from you. And we all, as artists and musicians and poets, oh, we're all the bellwethers of society. And we need a safe place where we can curate and curate and ruminate and come together in solidarity. And that's here at the Mammoth. Kind of old school, kind of new school, kind of solid as heck. they built this place in 1865. It's solid, oh, as can be. Just needs a little bit of help and love and care. People in Kentucky and Louisville, we know how to do that. Come together and help us out. So I'm in this warehouse singing an old song. Folk music's the way to go. Folks, not to be silly, but you know, do we have to do like an old-time radio show? Friends and neighbors, we need your kind assistance. We need it through comedy. We need it through art. We need it through poetry. We need it through wildness and creativity and abundance and insanity and creativity. I think we're going to throw it out there to Mr. McClurkin out there in the yard, I believe.
Thanks, John Paul. That was a really great intro. I just want to show you guys some of the great things that have been happening here at the Mammoth. It's a really important piece of our Vanguard art community. And I think with your support, we're going to be able to do a lot more Vanguard action in the future.
The wood in this building was very likely somewhere around a sapling or a teenager when George Washington was around, if you think about that, because these were full-grown, really big trees when Abraham Lincoln was around. And this building was built about the time he departed, and go back 150 years from there.
So
and,
we talked about it a little while ago doing an interview with you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, about what exactly would happen here if it was to be preserved. What would this place become?
Well, there are a number of possibilities.
Now we're talking to the visionary here, and he's going to tell us a 15-minute story. We'll just keep it.
Right.
Is this going to be
Concise.
artist collective?
Well, absolutely. The dream is for us artists, us creative folks to work together. I love to collaborate.
Yeah.
I know a lot of artists who love to collaborate.
Would this be considered a very large place for artists, musicians, and poets and writers and people could come all to inspire each other and to hold a community? Would it be that?
Yeah, I think you got the gist of it. And I think that works in two different ways. On the one hand, artists working as individuals around each other, but then also having a mutual project to work on that is a large installation space where it's evolving and everybody's feeding off of each other, everybody's riffing off of each other, and we create a huge space. And the whole immersive art world has become very popular with Meow Wolf and these sorts of things. It's been going on for a long time, but it's been very popularized.
And the problem that we got right now is that, and this is specifically talking about where would your money go if you did donate to this project. And the problem that we have now is that there are some structural things that need to be taken care of before this vision can come to fruition. So if you donate money to the to the fundraiser, your money will be used to be able to put collateral, I guess, right, as a loan so that we can get the structural things fixed to be able to make that happen. Is that correct?
Yes. Quickly, did you send me that embed code? Okay, I'm going to try to talk while I build a website for you guys.
Would this be
This is how I roll.
So that's the main thing I wanted to let folks know, that is if they do donate money to this fundraiser, that money will be used to fix the structural problems that we encounter, so that we can build this. Now, I would like to say this real quick, people that don't know who you are. In the past, you've had a very large, very vibrant artist community once before, so you've done this before.
Yeah.
This isn't your first rodeo.
Yeah, when I graduated in 2001, really was kind of mourning the loss of having a creative community to be around at school, and just felt I needed to find a group of people to be with. So I ran into an old buddy, Bart Hurry, and we started the Lava House, and we did that for years until it departed, and Hallie Jones and I did Nelligan Hall, and did a bunch of shows in Portland at the Festival Arts building, and just been working with a ton of artists and musicians, and it's just like.
Well, I got a job, working at maybe I don't know if I should say it or not, but I got a job working at the Belle Louisville Steamboat. And it's a 6-year-old piece of machinery that is definitely on the National Historical Landmark. And the main job there that we do is to preserve history. So in a lot of ways, what we're doing here with this building being built in 1865, with the building coming from the Union Army, being built for that purpose as a place to store the supplies for the Union Army, in a lot of ways, the way I see this place, is seriously historical to the city of Louisville and to this place in this region of the country, that this building represents the storing of the Union Army's supplies. So in a lot of the ways that I see this place is that this place can also be the storage space for the artists and the musicians and the creative people of this community, and from other communities that come in, to have a safe place to be able to gather up the supplies we're going to need to do the things in the future. Now, a lot of people today, I'm hearing a lot that things are never going to be the same after we get through some of these difficulties, but that's not always true. There's always been those historical times when things are never going to be the same. What we got to do is gather up and to come together, and that's the whole point of what the Mammoth Art Collective can be and what it has been coming to this point.
Yeah.
So I see that metaphor in that big picture, so that's what people will be, will be donating money to be able to get.
Right, and specifically, sorry, I got the website back up, so I'm not sure how many folks are back on there, but I'm going to hop off of here in a minute so that I can kind of let people know we're back on. But I do want to answer your question because it's a really important question. So in particular, this $40,000 goes to the down payment for a bank loan. So I'm not asking for a full $200,000, but that's what it's going to take to purchase the building from the family who is telling me I need to buy it or let go, and also do the repairs that we need to do to the building, and their basement posts, some sprinkler stuff, and just getting everything up to code.
To make it safe.
To make it safe, to get legal.
Yeah.
So that is that. Now, my friend Gregory here, I think, can answer your question, and I want to give you guys about 5 minutes to sit and talk further about that. Because I think he can riff. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to Brett, since those guys are over in the cemetery.
The sun's going to go down on them if we ain't careful.
See if you guys can switch the stream over to them.
First thing he wants, the sun going down in the cemetery.
Just give me a heads up. So thanks for sticking around, y'all.
Yeah.
Do appreciate it, and I hope that we didn't lose too many folks out there.
You good with it? All right. Yeah.
All right.
Brett Ralph, surface noise. I know that much about him.
Mr. Brett Ralph. He's a legend in this city with the music and the poetry punk rock. Super creative. Runs Surface Noise.
Oboe. I call him Oboe.
Yeah,
he's got it on his guitar.
Well, when you see Brett right now, He's with Mark Hamilton, one of Louisville's amazing, and doing a Paul K song.
just passed.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Paul K song, and Paul just did pass.
I don't know about tomorrow. Can't recall much of today. Though my heart is bathed in sorrow, my sweet Lord on his way. As a boy, I was a pharaoh. As a youth, I was a king. Now my soul soars like a sparrow. And my lips learn to say, I don't know about tomorrow. Can't recall much of today. Though my heart is bathed in sorrow, my sweet Lord is on his way. My sweet Lord is on his way.
Mud maid. Would it be a mermaid of mud or a mud maid?
I mean, muck maid.
I think that's a muck maid.
Yeah, I think it's a muck maid.
A muck maid. A
Yeah.
M-U-K, K for Kentucky.
Yeah.
And for also the C in Kentucky is for caring. Folks, just in case you wondered.
It's made for. Is that a result of PCBs and coal dust?
I'm not really sure. I think it has something to do with big pharma.
Ooh, yeah.
Or something to do with some kind of nuclear radiation, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
And the rivers. So, I mean, the hair is just so lifelike. I don't
Yeah.
know. If you guys can get a better view of that, we can do that later. But
Yeah, I ain't touching
But this
it, man.
mud
You
maid
think
is gonna
about
be-
social distancing.
I
Shoot, what are you
shellacked it.
talking about,
I
man?
shellacked it. It's
I ain't
fine.
touching that thing.
I shellacked it.
I mean, I see some stuff in the river, but nothing like that.
Well, it's completely sealed up in
Yeah.
a shellac, which is actually made of insect wings. Interestingly enough.
I have to ask you a question. Who the hell are you?
Oh, I'm Octo
Ah.
Claudius.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
me. October Siege Claudius. I'm taking the wrong cues here, but it's still fun. I'm not really a Kentucky native, but I have been a part of the Louisville Art Warehouse District since I've been to this city. Ever since I came to this city.
The first place I saw you was here at a,
This is
at a
one of
big
my
time freak out.
Well, when we were here, it was pretty cool, but that was the first time the undisclosed location was
we
even
weren't here.
discovered.
Yeah.
But there was that one time after that you saw me at the Mammoth that was really fun.
Right, at the undisclosed time, what we don't know about.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm
I wasn't there.
I'm from the sea. From the sea, and I do circus stuff. I do sideshow stuff. I really just want to contribute art to this grand city that we are in here.
Yes.
And also touching on the times, folks. The interesting part about the times that we live in is, of course, this COVID-19.
Yeah.
And a lot of my family members, guys, I gotta tell you, they work in the nursing industry.
Yeah.
They work in garbage disposal. Got a couple preachers in the family. These people are close to people.
Yeah.
And it's got me pretty worried. But, so we're out here keeping our social distance and trying to entertain those of you that are possibly trapped in your own homes right now, also being fearful and worrying about stuff. But the truth of the matter is that we are all here together, even though we are apart. We're all right next to each other in the ether, through the ether of the internet, the internether, if you will.
Kingdom Come by James.
We're all able to communicate, and we're very, very lucky for that. We're not completely alone. So remember that when you're all by yourself at home and you're worrying about what's going on, you're still connected. This is a time when we have this very rare opportunity to remain connected, even though we're in complete isolation. Otherwise, folks, you all be learning a lot more banjo songs. Am I right?
Yeah. You got Netflix. This is the front lines of the of preservation of artists and musicians and stuff. I got a lot of friends right now who are touring musicians that are out of a job, and a lot of people are jumping to Facebook Live and various other ways to get their names out there and taking the opportunity. But what we really need to really focus on now is making sure we take care of everybody, and the people that are working in the hospitals and the community people who do deal face to face. We've got to have a place in this community where we can all come together at the drop of a hat. And since you seem to have a very interesting hat,
and I have dropped it,
who wouldn't want to be able to go to a resource center to talk to artists and musicians about how to take care of terrible times?
And I can tell you, this place has been an inspiration to so many artists here in Louisville. I've been involved with the Mammoth as long as I've even been allowed to. As many chances as I can get, I want to help the Mammoth, because this place has really brought the community together, whether it's performing artists, whether it's musicians, whether it's just strange folks that get along and want to see some weird, cool stuff. That's what the Mammoth's all about. It's bringing those people together. It's keeping Louisville weird. This ancient building is crawling with history. There's just nothing like it here in Louisville, folks.
That's where that thing might have came from.
Well, that came from off the banks of the Ohio River near...
You just said this place is crawling
You know
with
when
stuff.
you're going
Is
through,
it really?
on your way to Cincinnati and you cross through Indiana for a second? Just for a second, you're in Indiana all of a sudden, but then you're back in Kentucky. That's called Vevey. And right there by the river is where I found this weird little cove full of these creatures.
Well, this is everybody out there in the digital world. This guy's going to be here with us for the duration of this get down, and we're going to come back to him various times. But we're getting ready to make an uncomfortable shift over to something else. And is that right, Aaron? Where are you at?
Well, the world is full of uncomfortable
Are we
shifts
making an
right now.
uncomfortable segue? Okay, okay. So to be serious here, we're going to go next to Kingdom Come, Jameson Welch. So here we go. Kingdom Come, Jameson Welch. Kingdom Come, Jameson Welch. Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come, a poem for David Cloud Berman. Part 1. Earth. Oh, it makes you want to drink sweet Hebrew wine, some wine that is blessed until everyone is blessed. Some more than others, of course. Some are blessed with fits and lyrics. Some teams have better mascots. I have to put it in words the only way I can. I feel like I am a tetragrammaton. I am both cloud and silver lining. There is no defining moment. Make this day another Rosh Hashanah, only make it a day that has no meaning. A sunset that stays in the window, a portrait of someone looking forward and looking back at everything. Moon over the gorge, say no more. Declaration of read it and weep, emancipation set in grooves of vinyl. Death is definitely not final. It's just doing what you set out to do a long time ago. Or maybe just the silence before you flip the record over. Yet, I still get a hollow feeling on Labor Day when the summer ends. In the eaves, the cooing sounds psalmic. Not a new song by any means. The same old lonesome knowing people are too heavy. It's up to the mourning doves now, the songbirds who remember a time when there was something more. Heaven. I'll explain later. To the one good woman who came along, who looked back and turned into a pillar of song, to the halcyon skies of nurturing Kentuck, its landscape relatives and Indian narratives, songs to carry on, like a strong letter finally finished and sent off. From Pikes Peak to Pikeville, in the music-hearted hills and in the wilds of thought, where weird feuds were fought and settled and brought forth wild children, from whence hymns came that were never taught. Like, O Mother dear Jerusalem, and to the land of the sort of free, of rose bushes and thorns, and still life with corn liquor, its ruffled feathers, the unleavened highways, primitive paintings, and twilight twitching dogs at dreaming. To its crazy pilgrims and vagrant roaming energies, to everything that was my fault, by the purple mountain's majesty, I take back all of my complaints. All of my dismay is hereby gone away. To the rusted weather vanes that pointed the way, by the destinies and predestinies invested in thee, by all the beauty, battles, tears, and blood shed, by all of the graces that were ever said round tables in Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee, whether kosher or not, blessed or not, ready or not. Amen.
We back to me? We're back to me. Well, howdy, folks, and howdy. This is WJPW, otherwise known as John Paul Wright. John Paul. This is a community show, folks. So what we got going on here is what we'd like to really for you to do is to make a donation, since that is the best nation that we got, because we got this big artist collective that we're trying to preserve, a big idea, a big vision. And first of all, if you're going to have a big vision, if you're going to have a big vision, you got to have a good foundation. Because if you ain't got a good foundation and you got a big old vision, then you got a problem. So that's what we're trying to do, is raise some money to help with the foundation of this structure. Now, what I got to do now is I got to throw this over to somebody else, because this is what this guy does. He's going to talk about the contextual idea of the Mammoth and what it is that the Mammoth Artist Collective might, and maybe not be in an undisclosed situation here. So what I'm going to do, now there may be a tinge of comedy in my part, I don't know, but I'm going to throw it over to Gregory Cheney right now, and he's going to help us get our brains wrapped around this idea that we've got here. How's it going, Greg?
Very well. And following up on your establishment of the theme of a foundation, I want to give a historical, geographic, and psychological foundation to the narrative in which the Mammoth building is embedded. Now, to do that, I first want to invoke the spirit of Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, one of America's and the world's greatest poets, served as a nurse to the wounded and dying soldiers of the Civil War in hospitals. And he wrote a poem, The Wound Dresser, documenting his and the soldiers' experiences. And I just want to read one verse of that poem to set the stage here. Thus, in silence, in dreams, projections, returning, resuming, I thread my way through the hospitals, The hurt and wounded I pacify with soothing hand. Walt Whitman, 1865, The Wound Dresser. On our city's west side, just beyond the infamous 9th Street divide, 1 block south of Broadway, on 13th Street, behind the oldest black Catholic church in Kentucky, St. Augustine, home of the Black Madonna of Louisville, rests a massive brick and limestone warehouse. Though it now sits in relative obscurity, it will soon occupy a global stage. That 90,000 square foot, 3-story and full basement building was constructed by the Union Army in 1865 to house medical supplies to tend to the wounded and dying soldiers of the Civil War. And as I understand it, soldiers from both sides, as Louisville was a hospital city on which trains transported wounded and dying soldiers from both Confederate and Union sides. This is why in Cave Hill Cemetery we have both Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers buried on the same grounds. Now let's meditate upon that year 1865 in which the Mammoth Building was constructed. 1865, the year of Lee's surrender to Grant at Appomattox. 1865, the year of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. 1865, the year of the 13th Amendment's ratification. 1865, the year slavery was outlawed in our nation. 1865, the year the Civil War came to its bloody close. Yet, wounds of racism remain open. 9th Street divides Louisville west and east along racial lines as dramatically as our Ohio River once demarcated our nation north and south on the philosophy of just what it means to be a human being. A well-known rule of real estate holds that when assessing the value of a plot of land, the 3 most important elements are location, location, and location. No other site in our city or our nation is located so perfectly and poetically, historically, geographically, and psychologically for a campaign to bring down that 9th Street wall for good and forever. Best of all, much of the hefty lifting has already been done. The above-described building, known affectionately as the Mammoth in Louisville's deep art, music, and activism communities, has already been successfully operated as a communal collaborative arts facility under the ownership of community artist and activist Aaron Conaway and his partner from 2012 to 2015. In a sort of Robin Hood arrangement, Aaron rented the 3rd floor out as storage space to subsidize affordable art studios, workshop areas, office space, and event spaces for the grassroots creative community, as well as a community garden to address food desert issues. In 2015, structural repair issues, all relatively manageable, required that the Mammoth be closed to the public until brought up to code. Since then, Aaron has kept the Mammoth alive by sheer determination, sacrifice, and resourcefulness, devoting all of his income and savings, countless hours of labor, and blood, sweat, and tears for maintenance, repairs, and upkeep. Though Aaron has done so in silence, I have witnessed the suffering he has endured to keep a dream alive. MLK Jr. was sustained during his most difficult trials and final days by his belief that undeserved suffering is redemptive. If this is true, and I believe it to be so, then Aaron Conaway must be well on his way to heaven. I sense the same is true for each of you listening now. I can only hope that one of you might prop open a side door so I can sneak in, if only for a few stolen moments. Now, at the turn of a new decade, the Mammoth is readying to rise to her feet again to help carry our city forward into a 2020 vision. Louisville as the nation's model of a fully human and sustainable community. Our community can return to and resume the healing narrative of that Civil War medical supply warehouse and elevate that theme to manifest a site where poetry, music, filmmaking, and art in all its forms are utilized by the most inclusive and diverse community of artists imaginable to soothe and heal the individual and collective soul wounds of our nation that result from racism. Native American genocide, slavery, systemic racism, all of these have blown the most ill of winds far beyond our borders. While most in this country see the U.S. as pure hero in World War II, we must also understand that Hitler had to look no farther than the United States for best practices in how to dehumanize and destroy whole peoples. Such were our gifts to Anne Frank and the Jews of the Holocaust. The soul engine that will power the Mammoth will be matricentric consciousness, in particular, the Great Mother or Black Madonna archetype. This archetype is characterized by compassion, creativity, community, diversity of race, religion, culture, gender and sexual identity, and a deep, holistic, integrated spiritual life which is involved in social, racial, and environmental justice. Activation of this archetype catalyzes the spiritual rebirth of cities through the arts. By way of his mystic conversion experience in the presence of the Black Madonna of Cobre, Cuba in 1940, this very archetype animated Kentucky's poet, prophet, and peacemaker of the 60s, Thomas Merton, and now animates our city as a whole. This is why Louisville is recognized as a compassion capital of the nation. By making the community consciously aware of this, we will amplify the expression of this archetype to heighten and accelerate the trajectory of our city's psychosocial evolution. This is psychotherapy at the level of the whole community, and we must remember that the word psychotherapy, in its root meaning, is all about healing the soul, not only the mind, body, or emotions. As a Mammoth Arts mother house, or, if you will, a monastery, the Mammoth will become a great fulcrum of change by which we leverage the arts and the art and activist communities to dismantle that 9th Street wall and repurpose its rubble to fashion bridges between West and East, North and South, black and white, as well as platforms for economic and political empowerment and equity, stairways and ladders by which our community, together as a whole, rises. whatever the cost may be of restoring the mammoth, the cost of not doing it would be far, far greater. So, by whatever means necessary, we, each of you and countless other creative community building collaborators, will occupy the mammoth and make it a creative womb through which we rebirth our city. I have great faith that just we few now witnessing this message, using little more than our imagination, have all that's needed to raise the mammoth to her feet. One very valuable thing that each of you can contribute to this campaign is your voice. Each of you has great credibility and community capital by which you can influence movers and shakers of our city. I urge each of you to make a visit to the Mammoth to see for yourselves the transformative potential that is even more massive than the building itself. If you see this as a worthy cause, please add your voice. And please lend your prayers, meditations, and good vibes. I believe these to be our most powerful resources. The soul force that MLK Jr. urged us to deploy in the face of material forces and obstacles. This has been the opening day of Thomas Merton University. The course, How to Start a Do-It-Yourself Revolution. Signing off from the City of Motherly Love, that's all for now from the underground bootleg black market news, where the news is, it's all good and right on time. All material, copyright 2020, the League of Visionary Artists, LOVA. Be a lover, not a hater.
Whenever you're ready.
Howdy, folks. This is kind of a biographical a little bit about who am I? And when we talk about ourselves, it's probably good to talk about our ancestors. And one of my ancestors is my mother, of course. So a lot of her comes out in me. So I want to read a poem I wrote to her called My Mom, Glenda Mellick. The woman who was my Cub Scout den mother. We collected stamps from Bangladesh to match face value for money to feed the poor. She taught me to use a magnifying glass to look at things real close. Hypocrisy motivated my childhood experiences, inspired by her mother's heart, a natural instinct. She protected her children, not just her own. The daughter of a Lebanese immigrant, the youngest, the baby of many children, she could not be silenced. Her voice was strong. If you knew her world, the sweetness of her song, if you knew her other side, the fire in her spirit, we organized against monsters, fought demons of greed and violence, a mother's heart beating in time with justice and love for the underdog. When she exposed the system, became a target, it was not easy to be her child. I was kicked out and abused by her enemies and held at bay by the cowards who were threatened by her power. She loved my fathers, two strong men who drank from her fountain of youth, mesmerized by her exotic eyes, her Arab heritage, like a princess from the temple she was. When she came out years before the community, accepting, I was introduced to fear and heartless ridicule. She stood in defiance of hate, shaking a fist at power, her mothering. No strong arm could beat down. I know why I am who I am, why I ask the hard questions, pit myself against the privileged. I was formed in her third world womb from a spark of light that came from the man who loved her. The creator, fire of womanhood. The love of mother is the spring, the alpha, the birth, and the continued freedom of protection. My mom was all to me. I am just a boy, lost in the crowd, crying for warmth of her hand to guide me home. Her memory sleeps in a flower garden where she made her home, made by the heart of the last to love her. I hear her voice in mine, feel that warmth in her hand on my shoulder. She knew I was just like her. Her stare was in knowing of the hardship of struggling. She knew her fight for fairness was passed on in the resemblance of our strength. She was just a child like me, lost in a world that was not fair. Yeah.